What is up, enthusiasts? It is Cedar here, and welcome back to another one of my videos. Today we are going to be talking about roller coasters within the state of Ohio. Now, I usually rank a lot of the roller coasters that I've been on, but today I wanted to do a little bit of a different format. A lot of people love to do these tier lists where they rank different categories and different tiers, so I want to do an Ohio coasters tier list. Now, these are all of the roller coasters I've ridden in the state of Ohio, besides a few exceptions. All of these are from either Cedar Point or Kings Island. If you don't know how a tier list works already, basically we have different tiers: the F tier, D tier, C tier, B tier, A tier, and then the S tier, which is the superior tier. But I decided to modify it a little bit. The tiers I decided to put in here are bad, meh, good, great, and elite. It's pretty self-explanatory from here, so let's get right into the video. This is Cedar Flags, and this is my Ohio roller coaster tier list. The first coaster we have on the list is Corkscrew at Cedar Point, the Aero Looper from 1975. Now, even though this coaster has a lot of historical significance, I am really not a fan of this thing. It's very jerky, it's very painful, and it will definitely leave a little bit of a kink in your neck for a few minutes after the ride. It really is an unpleasant experience, so I'm going to put it in the lowest tier. Up next, we have Diamondback at Kings Island, the amazing B&M hypercoaster. If you'd watched my last video, you would know that this ride is in my top 10. I absolutely adore the airtime moments on this ride so much. On some of the hills, you will be floating out of your seat for 5, 6, or even 7 seconds while you're sitting in the front. This truly is an out-of-this-world experience, and if I could ride it forever, I would. This is easily the elite tier. Coming up after that is Kings Island's other B&M airtime machine. We have Orion. The newest coaster at the park is a Giga Coaster by B&M, and this ride belongs in the same tier as Diamondback. Though I do slightly prefer Diamondback, this ride still has one heck of an experience and definitely deserves this tier more than enough. The next coaster on the list is Flight of Fear. This Premier Ride Spaghetti Bowl coaster is fully enclosed and has some amazing theming, and while you're sitting in the front, you're going to get a great ride experience with some great head choppers and some of the best theming for a Cedar Fair park. That queue is incredible. This ride is a pleasant experience in that row, but in other rows, I find this ride pretty unbearable. So I'm going to put this in the middle tier, the good tier. Now, if you know me, you know I absolutely love Millennium Force. Without a doubt, this is the top tier. This ride really feels like the full experience for a Giga Coaster to me. While this coaster isn't, let's say, as intense as something like Orion, it definitely still delivers some pretty good airtime during those camelbacks and some great gray out moments on those overbank turns. I also adore the ride setting over parts of Cedar Point. So yeah, this is definitely an elite tier ride for me. Valravn at Cedar Point is the B&M dive coaster at the park. This is a pretty fun ride, but nothing out of this world, so I think the good tier is the perfect place to put it. It's got some great airtime on those drops and some great inversions, but due to the rather short layout and the restraints that I kind of dislike compared to the restraints on SheiKra, this is going in the mild good tier. Up next, we have Mystic Timbers at Kings Island, the very new GCI wooden coaster at the park. I really do like this ride, but due to its rather short layout and some forceless elements, I'm going to put it at the great tier as opposed to the elite tier. This ride is still phenomenal though, and one of my favorites in the state of Ohio. It's very forceful and it's definitely worth a ride. The next spot goes to Banshee at Kings Island. What a phenomenal B&M looper. I know this is a very polarizing coaster, but I am a big fan of this. Even though it has the vest restraints, they don't really bother me that much on this ride for a few reasons. The main reason is this ride isn't airtime centric while the dive coasters are, so it doesn't have any airtime to kill. This ride's layout itself is also phenomenal. You have some great elements. My personal favorite is either the pretzel knot or the loop following the pretzel knot. These two elements are extremely forceful. Definitely a great ride. The next spot goes to the other B&M invert in the state of Ohio, Raptor at Cedar Point. And while I don't find the layout as diverse as Banshee's, I think this ride is much more forceful. While Banshee's overall just fun, this ride makes your legs feel like jelly. So I would say it's on the same tier as Banshee, just for slightly different reasons. Great ride once again. The late and great Wicked Twister is the only defunct coaster on this list. This was a template I found, and I'll give the link in the description if you want to find it out. But this ride definitely had a bit to offer. It was overall just a filler coaster, and the few elements it has, well, the 3 elements it had, were pretty good in its own right, but they weren't good enough to put this above the meh tier. The reason is because this ride's main thrill is just the views. It really isn't too forceful, it's a little jittery, and the best thing it provides is a great view while facing down. That's about it. The next coaster on the list is Gatekeeper, the B&M wing at Cedar Point. Take everything, and I mean everything I said about Banshee, but put it on a wing coaster. This ride is a very diverse layout with some camelbacks and inversions. Its signature element are the near misses at the keyholes at the front of the park, and this really just feels like a well-rounded ride. I'm gonna put it up with the other B&Ms. The next one is Cedar Creek Mine Ride. This is a family coaster, so it's not meant to thrill you. It is a little jittery, and you could definitely tell it's a very outdated ride. It's from the late 60s, but looking at the ride itself, it's very fun. It really doesn't provide that many forces. It's just a fun ride to be on. So I would say this is in the meh tier. The next coaster is Top Thrill Dragster at Cedar Point. Man, this ride is short like Wicked Twister, but unlike Wicked Twister, all of the elements pack one heck of a punch, and this ride truly is phenomenal. The 120-mile-an-hour launch, the top hat, and that amazing drop, even with the amazing restraint system, yeah, this ride is incredible, and definitely deserves an elite tier status. The next spot goes to Gemini. I truly love this ride. There's just something about the fun factor of this ride that makes you want to go right back on. This ride is the very definition of fun, and I'm gonna put it pretty high. This Aero hybrid has some pretty good camelbacks, pretty good head chopper moments, and most notably a racing element with 2 separate tracks. This ride is just pure fun, and it's going right into the good tier. Now, let's go to the front of the park to talk about Blue Streak, the classic PTC Woody at the park. I am actually a massive fan of this ride. Now, this ride, in my opinion, is very underappreciated. I think the airtime on this ride is phenomenal for an old school Woody, and is in my top 2 PTCs right beneath Phoenix. I have to say, this ride truly is phenomenal for me, so I'm going to put it in the great tier. Might be an unpopular opinion, but whatever. Now, we stay at the point to talk about Iron Dragon, the aero suspended at the park. And while Blue Streak's a very enjoyable ride, I think Iron Dragon is just a snooze fest. I really don't find any enjoyment in this ride at all. I'm not going to say it's a bad ride because it really isn't a bad ride. I don't dread going on it, I just really don't plan on going on it at all. I have ridden this many times, so I'm going to put this in the meh tier. It's meh. At the next spot, we have Adventure Express at Kings Island, the Aero Mine Train. Unlike Cedar Creek, I do not find this ride enjoyable whatsoever. I find it very jittery, very rough, and very bumpy. It jerks you around way too much to enjoy, so I'm going to put it at the very bottom tier. Up next, we have Magnum XL200. We've been ranking a lot of Cedar Point coasters recently, but Magnum, well, I have to say, is a little overrated for me, but not too much. It has some pretty great airtime moments near the end, and some pretty great floater moments throughout the ride, but overall the ride's just way too jittery for me to enjoy it like some of the other rides on this list. I know I'm going to get a lot of slack for saying this, but if I'm going to ride a retro airtime machine at Cedar Point, I would much rather ride Blue Streak. This is definitely a good tier coaster for me. Now we go back to Kings Island to talk about the Beast, such an iconic roller coaster, good for completely different reasons than some of the other ones on this list. The night ride is phenomenal. This ride overall is just a gem. I really do enjoy rides on the Beast, especially in the front row. Unpopular opinion, but I'm going to put this in the great tier next to Blue Streak. Up next, we have the Racer at Kings Island. This historic wooden roller coaster reminds me a lot of Blue Streak, but to a less intense extent, and with its racing nature and forceful airtime and smooth layout. It could be a pretty kick-butt ride, but I don't think it's as good as rides like Blue Streak, so I'm going to put it in the good tier. The next spot goes to the one and only Steel Vengeance. Yes, this is of course the elite tier. Where else could this be? You know how much I love this ride. It is my #1 overall. Riding this, you are in airtime heaven. There is every single sort of airtime you could possibly imagine. this ride truly is the perfect coaster for me. The Bat at Kings Island is a very enjoyable coaster. While Cedar Point Suspended is forceless and boring, this ride, even though it is still a family coaster, provides some really great thrills. This ride has some great positive forces, and you are rocking back and forth the whole time. It feels out of control and is one of my favorite rides at the park, but it is nowhere near as good as some of the others I've mentioned previously. For this reason, I would definitely say this is a good tier coaster. Very enjoyable, very re-rideable, and very, very fun. Woodstock Express, well, it's just a kiddie coaster. There really isn't that much to say about it. It's fun, but it's definitely not in my age range, so I'm gonna put it down here. Ruguru, don't even get me started. While I love all of the other B&Ms at these two parks, I have to say Ruguru is definitely not one that I like to re-ride. It's jittery, it's rough, it hurts my head, and it's just very unpleasant. Like some of the other rides, I'm not going to say it's horrible, but I'm going to put it all the way down here. In Vertigo is a Vekoma Boomerang model, but in their Vertigo edition. It's a pretty fun ride, not that much in variety. I'm just going to put it here just to make this a little quicker. Next we have the one and only Maverick, the beautiful Intamin Blitz at Cedar Point. This is one of my favorite coasters of all time. It has one amazing variety and is one of the most well-rounded coasters I've ever been on. From the amazing positive G's to the incredible launches, all the way up to the incredible airtime moments, this ride really does have it all. No questions about it, this is an elite tier roller coaster. Finally, at the very last spot we have the one and the only Backlot Suncoaster. Yeah, this ride is a pretty good ride, it's family oriented though, but it does have some pretty good forces that attract to all ages. I'm just going to put Backlot Suncoaster here because I think this is right where the ride deserves to be. So this is my completed list. Let me know what you think in the comments below. I really did like this idea of a video and I hope to do more of these. Let me know what you would like to see in the comments below and let me see your own. This is Cedar Flags and I'll see you all later.